Hello, my name's Kat, and this is me talking about cognitive theory and why I think it applies to learning some things. As an adolescent, I was a member of a lifesaving club, and we learnt how to tie different knots. One specific knot was the reef knot. I think this is a good example of the information processing model, and I'll explain why. We were first shown the knot itself, and then our instructor showed us how to tie the knot, demonstrating by saying left over right, right over left, and then pull together. On a sensory level, this meant that we had audio and visual stimuli coming in, and as they're processed separately, this would have prevented us from having cognitive load or cognitive overload, as I seem to think of it. If we were paying attention to our instructor, we also would have processed this information into our working memory. We were then given a piece of rope each and able to physically practice it ourselves, repeating the rhyme or the little saying. And this was a way of encoding it into our long-term memory. We learnt other knots at the same time as well, like a bowline, a half hitch, a fisherman's knot, for example, and I remember those too. Now when I recall how to tie a reef knot, I still say the rhyme to myself and I picture, sort of visualise tying the knot as well. For me, this indicates that it's a procedural memory because I visualise it, but I also find it an episodal memory because I am remembering my time at the Lifesaving Club as well, and that's a personal memory. That's why it's episodal. In terms of metacognition, at the time of learning, I really liked going to the Lifesaving Club, so I probably paid more attention than other people, and that's why I managed to put so many knots into my memory bank, as it were. We also practiced them quite regularly, so it meant that they were being retrieved as well as, encoded. They were then being retrieved again. In relation to Bloom's taxonomy, I think this definitely visits the first three levels, which is remembering, understanding, and applying. But it also engages the higher levels as well. I have to use analysis to look at the different types of knots and differentiate between them. I have to use my metacognitive skills to question and evaluate if I'm doing them correctly or not, and if not, self-correct. And then as a textile artist, I creatively have extended my knowledge of knots by applying different materials to how they're used and using them in ways that they weren't originally purposed for or taught to me for. In terms of limitations of cognitive theory, I think there are a couple. I think, for one, people are more complex than computers. They're individuals with certain emotional, cultural, and social differences. And these differences can affect what we choose to pay attention to and what we think that it's important to remember. We also have individual characteristics with likes and dislikes. Personally, as a textile artist, I like tying knots and I like procedures and processes. So for me, learning how to tie knots was something very easy. I'm not saying that it would be for everyone. Also, cognitivism theory doesn't really consider the motivations of the learner very much. It seems to just assume that children want to learn everything and it's just processing information. And compared to the behaviourists who motivators are everything for, I think this is a limitation of the cognitive theory. However, from an ethical standpoint of view, I think cognitivism has the potential to be less harming than behavioural learning theory, as manipulating people from that behaviourist perspective could be quite damaging if done in the incorrect way. But at the end of the day, I see cognitive learning theory needing and having a place in the classroom as much as behaviourism. And I think they support each other and the learner, having positive and negatives. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for listening.